Hey guys, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have an unhaul. So I haven't actually done an unhaul since the beginning of this year sometime, and I've just been accumulating slowly, which is, you know, good, slowly books that I know I need to unhaul. I think every single one of these I either read and disliked or DNF'd. So I actually don't have any books to unhaul today that I don't think I'm going to read on my TBR, which is what a ton of them were earlier this year. But otherwise, I'm very, very excited to sort of show you guys these. I know some other people might absolutely love these, and I am actually going to be selling these on Depop. I will have the link down below. I have some other books on there as well, but this is just a way for people that want to buy these at a slightly cheaper price than you would normally, and for me to then get money to spend on more books. I will also be having the store have a 15% off sale for 1 week following this video. So as of the day that you guys are seeing this, hopefully if you're watching it on the first day, I think this is supposed to be coming up on Thursday, you will see these things going up on Depop. I will be working on that as you guys are seeing this, and I will also then have everything in the store 15% off. I do allow bundles, obviously, and the only thing is that shipping is only throughout the United States, and that's just because of how it works with shipping lately. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me on that app and we can, you know, try and work something out. But this is just a way for me to get a little bit of extra money and get these books back out into the wild. So I have about just over 20 books, I think, here, and let's jump right on in. The first book I have here is Romanov by Nadine Brandes. This is the Shelf Love Crate exclusive cover, so it is like a navy blue instead of black, and it is going to be signed. I did end up DNFing this book, but it is a YA fantasy retelling sort of thing of Anastasia. Next, I have The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, and Maureen Johnson. This is because I had 2 copies of it, and I've just been holding on to it for a few years now, and I don't need 2 copies of this book. So yeah. Then we have Cat-a-lyst by Alan Dean Foster. This, I believe I gave 3 out of 5 stars earlier this year. It is an adult sci-fi that came out in 1991, and it was just okay for me, but I do feel like Alan Dean Foster is a very classic sort of author for older sci-fi. Then we have Pretty Little Werewolf by Katie Salidas. This is a self-published book that I did pick up at a Phoenix Comic-Con a few years ago. I did read it earlier this year, and I just felt like the writing style just wasn't really for me. This does deal with YA paranormal romance, and it has werewolves. There are more books in the series. They might get better, but it was just not for me, although this cover, you know, is gorgeous. Then we have These Rebel Waves by Sarah Rosh. This is another one that I ended up DNFing, and I believe this is another Shelf Love Crate book. I don't think it's exclusive in any way, except for the fact that it is signed. And this is another YA fantasy that just didn't have enough fantasy for me. It was very slow moving, and I just did not finish. We have 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. This is the entire collection. I DNF'd this on page 20. It talked a little bit too much about women's bodies, and our main guy character was very objectifying and thought about his mom having sex a lot, and it was just not my thing. So yeah, it's an adult speculative, I think it is. Then we have Charming by Elliot James. This is an adult urban fantasy that, again, I ended up DNFing this year. I just really could not get into the writing style and our main character. He also objectified women just a little bit, but he also went on very, very long, rambling stories that I didn't feel like pertained to the plot, and I got bored. Next, we have Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I did actually just read this week. Gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I did like it better than Burn Our Bodies Down that I read earlier this year by Rory Power, but there was still just something missing. The writing style was a little bit better for me in here, but I feel like that's something that I'm just not connecting to very well with this author specifically. Also, the ending, while I understand it was an open ending and I didn't mind that too much, there were too many things left unsaid about everything going on. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, and I don't see myself needing to keep it on my shelves or ever rereading it. Then we have Shadow House Book 1, The Gathering, as well as Shadow House Book 2, You Can't Hide by Dan Poblocki. These are middle grade horror books. I don't remember too much about this one because I read it a few years ago, but I did recently read this one. I gave them both 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because, at least for this one for sure, the horror is so well done that I feel like it should be a higher grade level than middle grade, but the writing style and the way the plot comes together is just, I don't know, answers to problems sort of fall into our hero's laps, so there's no real agency to the characters, and the writing style is very, very simplistic, but the horror is very horror. So like, I don't know, this is such a weird series. The horror feels older than middle grade. The writing style feels a little bit juvenile for middle grade. And so, yeah, I'm not gonna continue with the series. Next, we have The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson. This I ended up giving, I think, 2 out of 5 stars in my last review that I talked about it, but I feel like the more that I think about this book, it goes down to a 1 out of 5 stars. This is a book about coming out as trans, written by somebody who is not own voices. There is a lot of dead naming of the character, even though they didn't really have a specific, you know, name that they wanted to go by, except for their birth name, before most of this book happens, but another character being trans was used sort of as a plot twist, and that character who is trans, once they found out that our main character was trans, kept using the wrong pronouns even when they were, you know, by themselves and not near anybody who might not know our character was trans. There was a lot of things in here that I just was very uncomfortable with, and so yeah, I'm not going to be keeping it. Then we have The Gospel of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. This is an adult fantasy about Norse mythology. It is supposed to be Norse mythology told from Loki's perspective. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. A lot of the actual stuff that went on in here was stuff that I knew about, but it didn't give me any extra, like, context. It was told from Loki's perspective, and it was just him telling stories, and it fell flat for me. Then we have Want by Cindy Pon. I think I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. I actually don't fully remember. However, this is a story about a character who comes from like the lower class society in a futuristic society where a lot of the people have to deal with like pollution and stuff in the air, and he infiltrates the higher society that has like specialized suits to wear to filter out that stuff. So it's a very dynamic between the poor and the rich, and he sort of wants to like stage a coup to sort of help the poor people. I thought this was going to be more like a heist book. It was very, very slow moving. The romance in here, one, I felt was a little bit unnecessary, but also felt a little bit like insta-love, and then the parts that actually were the heist aspects of it was only for about a chapter, and then as soon as it was over, they forgot about it. Like, it was over and done with. So, yeah, even though there is a second book in this series, I don't think I'm ever gonna pick it up. Then we have The Chalkman by CJ Tudor. This is the UK edition that I had purchased when I was on my honeymoon in the UK a couple years ago, actually, and this is an adult thriller, mystery. It definitely feels more like a domestic thriller because of the fact that Stephen King blurbed it, and it had a lot of elements that reminded me of it, as in most of our cast for half of this book was like the children group, and then the other half was as adults, and then they had like a clubhouse in the like forest area, and they had a rock fight, and there was one girl with a whole bunch of guys. Like, it was just very, very reminiscent of it. There was no horror in it, and it definitely, like I said before, I think felt like a domestic thriller. It was, or domestic mystery even. It wasn't very thrilling for me. But most of it was just revolving around who killed one girl, and it ended up feeling more like small town family issues. There wasn't really a big mystery besides that thing. And then the most interesting part of the whole book happened in the last like 10 pages maybe, and I really wanted to know more about that, but then it was over. It was so like glossed over, but that was the best part of the whole book. Again, I don't remember the actual rating I gave this. It was either 2 or 3 stars. Then we have For the Record by Charlotte Huang. This is a book that I went in thinking that it was going to have a little bit of romance, because it does talk about our main character going into a band. Like, she's like 17 or 18 years old, going into a band, and she sort of ends up in a relationship with like a teen movie star. And I thought there was going to be a little bit more romance. She is in that relationship, but it's definitely not a like romance. It is her figuring out who she is and coming to terms with the fact that like she doesn't actually like this guy, and she's dealing with their band problems. It was, I don't know, just a little bit slow going. I didn't find myself drawn into the story. It is probably something that other people would absolutely love. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and again, it's just not something I want to keep on my shelves. Then we have the first 2 books in the Red Queen's War series. So we have Prince of Fools, and we have Liar's Key by Mark Lawrence. There have been some things talking about Mark Lawrence on Twitter and how misogyny and all this kind of stuff going on. I have never read a Mark Lawrence book. I have no nostalgia or anything for this series, and I have heard that there is some, you know, bad things that happen to women in here. I think there's some rape, that kind of stuff that I just don't really see myself wanting to read. So since I have no actual ties to these books, I'm going to be getting rid of them. And then we have the first 2 books in the Gentleman's Bastard series. So we have The Lies of Locke Lamora and Red Seas Under Red Skies. These are by Scott Lynch. Again, stuff had been showing up on Twitter about this author. This one had more to do with grooming of younger female authors. And again, I've never read a Scott Lynch book. I don't have any ties to this series, even though I had heard it was amazing. So I don't want to get into a series that I then need to buy the 3rd book for when that kind of stuff has been going on. It's just not something I want to get into and support. And then the last 4 books we have here are going to be graphic novel books. So we have Mare Internum by Dershing Helmer. This was a book that I had helped kickstart, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. Comes with a little postcard too. But it definitely has some elements that I guess maybe are not necessarily problematic, but are definitely very hard-hitting. It deals with like attempted suicide, sexual assault, especially for a minor, abandoning your family, things like that. And I didn't necessarily mind that kind of stuff. However, a lot of what went on in here was very confusing for me, and I did not at all understand the ending. I did give it 3 out of 5 stars because it's gorgeous and some parts were really, really, really good. But I didn't understand a lot of it, and so I'm just going to be passing this on to somebody who might want to enjoy it more. Then we have A Flower in a Field of Lions by Ryan Cody and Tyler Button. This is a graphic novel about Joan of Arc. I had heard that this author and artist obviously did a lot of historical, what am I trying to say? Research into the history of Joan of Arc in order to write this graphic novel. I enjoyed it well enough. I'm not a big history buff. Some of the stuff was a little bit confusing near the beginning when they were just sort of throwing the history in. But otherwise, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm just never gonna read it again. It's just one of those things that's not necessarily my cup of tea. I did buy it because I wanted to try history in the form of a graphic novel. But I'm sure there's other people that want to read this more than I do wanting to reread it. Then we have Shards. This is by Pip Reyes, Kimberly Moss, Ralph Salazar, Matt Ng, Don Ellis Aguilo, and Diga Salazar. This is a short story collection with graphic novel stuff, comics. My biggest issue with this is that some of the stuff was really, really good, but because they're like, they're not even necessarily short stories, they're snippets of comics. I don't know when the other stuff is going to be coming out. I haven't seen anything specifically about most of the comics in here. It is a short story collection that sort of like introduces you to all of these worlds. Again, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars just because some of them I thought were really, really good. Other ones, not so much, and I just want to pass this on to other people. And then we have Arthur Blackfrost by Justin Vincent Gray. This was another graphic novel that I had kickstarted. It's a very, very short one, like 72 pages. The art style, like, again in here, very, very gorgeous. That sucks me in every single time. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I just personally didn't feel like this story connected with me too well, and it definitely felt more like it was a story being told to somebody else than being shown in a graphic novel. So again, very gorgeous. I'm sure somebody else is going to love this, but I'm never going to reread it. And so those are all of the books that I am currently planning on getting rid of. As I said before, I'm going to include the Depop link down below in case you are interested in purchasing any of these books for your own collection. I'm only doing this to really get some of my money back to then get more books to show you guys. And like I said before, I will have a 15% off deal going on for 1 week. Let me grab my phone so I can actually tell you the dates. So this video should be going up on August 20th. So through August 27th, I will have the 15% off sale thing going on so that you guys can purchase books at a discounted price. I'm hoping most of the people that end up going and buying stuff when it's discounted are people that actually watch me. But again, leave me a DM on Depop if you have any questions. These will be going up while this video is playing for you, hopefully, so that everything should be ready by Thursday morning. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. So I will see you then. Bye!